Welcome to Perspectives. My name is Bruce. Today on our podcast, we have the musician who wrote that song you just were listening to. It's called We Didn't Want Your War by Mr. Peter Putnam. So welcome, Peter, to the Perspectives podcast. Where are you in the U.S.? What state, city?
I'm in Dalton, Georgia. That's northwest Georgia, just in the foothills of the Appalachians.
Okay, and I read on Facebook you were born in Georgia. Is that right?
Correct.
Cool.
I'm a Georgia native.
And that's God's country, I hear.
It's really pretty North Georgia. I think we're partial. As far as Georgians, we have the best part of the state.
Right. It's always beautiful driving through Georgia. So tell me a little bit, before we get to the song and a little bit of history there, tell us about yourself. Were you born and raised there? A little bit of your story, your background.
Yes, born and raised in Dalton. However, I haven't lived the entirety of my life here. I've lived in Atlanta, and before returning back to my hometown, I lived in Knoxville, Tennessee, in East Tennessee for 7 years, which is beautiful. And especially heading into fall, it's one of the prettiest places in the eastern part of the country.
Is that the connection with Visible? I understand did you go to Visible? What's the story there, the music college?
Yes, I attended Visible, I believe in its second year, which is shocking. It's been 20 years now that's how I know Ken. Think the world of Ken. What a great man, great leader. So that is the connection. So
okay, and for those of you that maybe we're talking about Ken Stortz, and he's one of the founders of Skillet, which I'm sure you've heard of out there, and he started a music college when he finished with the band and went and got his doctorate, and so we're friends as well. And that's a little bit of our connection together, because my daughter went there. And so that's some of the little bit of history, how Peter and I have connected as well. And so a little plug for Visible Music College for those of you out there that want to deepen your creative skills, production, songwriting. They've got all kinds of really great courses there in Memphis. So I'm sorry to interrupt you, but that was for Ken. Ken, you owe us lunch. You started there and then took a break and then came back, or how did that work?
Well, at that point in my life, I was really trying to, as many people in their early mid-20s, trying to figure out what they're supposed to be doing. So always had a passion for music, and that's what led me to Visible. Obviously, incorporating my faith, I thought it would be at that point in my life, I thought it would serve me well to go be trained and increase my skill set and knowledge musically, but also knowing the core beliefs of the school at the time. I thought this would just be a good place to go be trained and equipped, per se. But I was always in between two worlds. I mean, there was music, and then there was athleticism and bodybuilding. That was something I'd already been doing. So again, at a stage where I was just really trying to figure things out. To this day, it's still these dual worlds of music and bodybuilding. After Visible, I went full steam into bodybuilding. That became a career. I was very fortunate to have success with that, and it was a big part of my life. It still is, as far as training and taking care of myself. But that was the focus for pretty much the 2004 to about 2010. That was what I was doing, full time. We use the word sport. I don't really consider it that, but it's one of these professions where if you're able, unfortunately, not many people are, to even make a living doing it, you can do it for much longer than the average as far as professional, sports. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like, golfers can go for many years. Bodybuilding, if you don't sustain an injury that is detrimental to your ability to train, you can go for a long time.
Mm. Are there any other musicians that come out of the bodybuilding world?
Not that I know of. There has been guys that they probably were musically inclined or had been trained in an instrument at some point in their life, and that's something that they still enjoy, but never have gone to really pursue it as far as trying to like take their music to a place where they're actually creating and putting it out and streaming it and wanting to maybe shift gears and go full force into music.
And so during these years, music's still a big part of your life. Obviously, it's not something that you just turn on and off.
It's always been a big part of my life, and so like when I was still competing and I was making my livelihood and income was coming from bodybuilding, I would still be that guy that would stop in a Guitar Center or the local music store, and I was still, there's something about holding a guitar for me that just ignites this the possibilities, because I always believe like each guitar is like a person. They're all different. They have different personalities. And I've always believed that every guitar has a song or has songs, and it's your job to pull the songs out, to find them, to explore. So there's always this creative burst with a new guitar. So I mean, it's funny because as many other musicians, we end up acquiring a lot of gear, and a lot of gear meaning equipment, and particularly guitars. And sometimes people on the outside wonder, like, how many guitars do you need? Like, why do you have so many? And you're like, well, the best way I can explain it is they're like having different colors. So you have a palette with different colors, and each guitar produces a different sound tonally, especially if you're talking about the difference between electric and acoustic, and there's different type of electrics, different pickups. Makes obviously you're getting into a lot of the musical geek talk, but it's like having the ability to choose from different paints. So when you have this creative vision in your mind, it's like a canvas soundscape, and so you have these different colors, the sounds to pull from. And so
tell me about your particular genre. Well, how would you describe it?
It's rock and roll. I mean, and that's a very vast and diverse genre. I mean, there's all different type of subgenres in that. I mean, so I don't, probably more alternative, I would say. I'm working on an album right now, and like, who do I sound like, or what does this sound like? And it's interesting. I've had someone tell me one song sounds like country, another song sounds like it's from the 90s, like Soundgarden. So I'm like, I don't hear it. I just write what I feel in the moment. It's of the soul. It's something where there's an emotional music for me. Like, like I'm searching for sounds, and something that I have to connect to and feel. Like the instruments speak it to me. What I hear, whether it's the acoustic and the literally the vibrations of it as it's up against my body, and I'm just listening and exploring. You're connected with it. It's almost like going on a journey. Like where is this going to take me? So I'm always searching for the sound that's going to take me somewhere.
Interesting. So let's move now to the song, and tell us a little bit of the history of this song, We Didn't Want Your War, and how that came about.
Well, like everyone, when Russia invaded Ukraine, here in the West, we're watching the news outlets, and we're being flooded initially at the beginning with, 24/7 coverage coming out of the Ukraine. I mean, that was, the headline news for many weeks. You couldn't help but not see images that were startling, and to consider that people were going about their lives one day, and then just literally overnight, their whole world's being, just completely upheavaled, and people's homes and buildings being leveled, and just thinking about, like, you're trying to put yourself the best you can here. Like, what would that be like all of a sudden, like the terror of like not knowing if you're going to even like wake up in the next morning because your home may be shelled, and seeing refugees fleeing, trying to get out to Poland and Romania. And you're thinking like, what in the world's going on? This is insane that this is happening in 2022.
Hmm. And so you don't
So
have family in Ukraine. There's no specific connections to the country.
no, I have no family in Ukraine, so there's no connections.
Hmm. And tell me about the process. Did you have the music first, the lyrics first? How did it come about?
One evening, which is very common, I was on the couch. The television was on, but it was muted. Um, and I had stumbled upon this chord progression that I thought was really, really cool. And it was eliciting a certain mood. And I just looked over at the television, caught my eye, and I'm playing this progression, and I'm seeing all the images on the news from Ukraine. It just seemed like there was this connection with the imagery I was seeing on the television, and then the chord progression, the mood that it was eliciting. And all of a sudden, words started coming to me. Fear is growing in the streets. Bombs exploding. We can't sleep. And so I think I have to look at. It's funny how you can sing a song. It's now recorded, but I can sometimes forget my own lyrics unless I have the guitar and I'm singing it, and it's just
Hmm.
automatic. But fear is growing in the streets. Bombs exploding. We can't sleep. But so these words were downloaded, and I thought, wait a minute, I need to write these down. So I grabbed a sheet of paper and a pen and started writing down the initial verse. And I had that initial verse right there, and I thought, this could be really something special. This is cool. But I don't want to rush this. It was late at night, and I thought, I'm just going to leave this here and really consider what is about to happen with this. If I write a song about Ukraine, what does that need to be? What do I need to say? What am I going to communicate in that song? And at that point, I wasn't thinking about a song for an audience to hear. It was just like, as a songwriter, I wanted it to be. You consider I'm considering the audience if this song is written, like right now, it's just for me. I'm writing this song, but I want it to have the ability to make sense, to connect to others. I thought maybe the best way to proceed would be to listen to anytime that I hear someone from Ukraine being interviewed on the news, that I should listen to what they are saying because it's their experience. And so I thought maybe I'll just start taking notes of actual words coming from Ukrainians, things that they're saying. And I can begin to use that as a basis for some lyrics. And so that's exactly what I did. So the following day, I began to listen to the news. I didn't just sit down in front of the television and start taking notes. I wanted it to be just real organic. And if I was in the kitchen, I had the notepad, on the counter, the news is on. And so I believe it was either the day after, it was within a very short window right after the State of the Union address. One of the ambassadors to the United States from Ukraine, she was being interviewed, and I heard her say, "We didn't want this war. This is Putin's war. We didn't want this war." And, real dramatic when she said that, but what she said just jumped all over me. I was like, wait a minute. So I wrote that down, we didn't want this war. This is Putin's war. And I already had something else written down from that day. Someone saying we're not afraid to fight. These were actual words I was hearing coming out of the mouths of Ukrainians. So I'm looking at all these different things that I had been, jotting down. And now here's this phrase we didn't want this war. This is Putin's war. So I thought, okay, so Ukraine's been invaded. This has been brought to their homeland. And we use an expression in English, but you brought it to our door. Meaning you brought it to us. You showed up on our doorstep. We didn't come to you. So that everything started clicking, and I saw this as more of we're speaking out and we're addressing the culprit here. This is Putin. We didn't want your war, but you brought it to our door. And then I'm looking at these other, words that I've written down. We're not afraid to fight. And then I thought, we'll make it through another night. That hope, that optimism, we're going to stand, we're going to fight for our country, And so there was the chorus. I'm looking at this and I'm like, wait a minute, this looks we didn't want your war, but you brought it to our door. We're not afraid to fight. We'll make it through another night. I was like, okay, let's go grab the guitar and let's see if we can start putting this into the song if it fits. And so the moment I started, like, I stumbled upon what would be the chord progression for the chorus without the words, I knew right away. I was like, this is good. No lyrics, just the chord progression for the chorus. I was like, this is really good. I got excited. I was like, that's now add the words. Let's see if these words just fit. And you don't know if they are. Like, you want it to be natural. It's almost like they just were meant to be. And so when I then began to sing and add the lyrics, of the chorus, we didn't want your war, but you brought it to our door. It was like hand in glove. They just fell perfectly into the chord progression for the chorus. And I was like, this is something special. I was like, this is really cool. In that moment, I decided just to really work over the next day or two and finish the song. So I knew that the song, if anything was going to be done with it, it needed to be done like right away. So I thought, well, who can I send this to get some feedback from? Ken. I recorded the song on my iPhone, so just an iPhone demo, and I emailed it to Ken. Within a couple hours, Ken emailed me back, and he said, I think I said, hey, I've just written a song. It's about Ukraine. I don't know if it's any good. Let me know what you think. It was just like that. So he emails me back and says, I really like it. Is it possible we could do a song? The song is for the people of Ukraine. It's to allow them to know that their plight, their struggle is being seen, it's being felt, that their lives matter, that those of us in the West, although we can't step physically into the crisis, we can use our voices. We all have social media. We can post videos. Hey, and here's a song that we could share, and that we can, use this song as a way to show our solidarity and support. This was in the works before anyone else had done anything musically with a song for Ukraine. So Ken said, well, because I really like this idea. And then that's where he brought it. He goes, well, and of course I didn't know, because we have a student who is Ukrainian. Her father's actually in Ukraine, has a organization in Ukraine. Would you be cool with that? And I was like, Ken, that would be even better. I mean, wow. Yeah. I mean, someone who's actually their boots on the ground in Ukraine. I think that would be a really neat thing to do. So I didn't have like any preference at that point. This whole thing was just happening so fast. The song needs to be recorded, right? So I don't have the connections you do. How do we go about that? And he said, well, let me make a few phone calls and I'll get back to you. 2 days later, Ken, I know this has been long-winded, Bruce. 2 days later, Ken texts me and he says, can you be here a week from today? He goes, can you be in Memphis a week from today? I'm thinking, what, a week from today? So I asked him, I was like, well, Ken, I don't guess the sound engineer or the studio is going to do this pro bono. He said, no. I was like, So I was like, what's the cost going to be? And he tells me, and I'm thinking to myself, oh boy, I do not have the money. This was not an expense that I had allotted funds for. But I just felt like, you know what? It needs to happen. And if it's meant to be, it will happen. And so I contacted Ken and said, tell him that I will be there, that we are coming. And so at that point, Ken then started orchestrating the other instrument, like the percussionist to come in. And March 22nd, we recorded a song one day in the studio, which typically doesn't happen. It was a race from the beginning we walked in until the end, but it seemed to be pretty effortless. It was amazing. And we recorded something really special. And I think it's something we're all very proud of, that the whole thing came about truly effortlessly. And it was just a really great experience that, what began on the couch, within 2 weeks was recorded. And there's a song now that's streaming worldwide for those who are aware of it. And I hope more and more people can become aware of it and give it a listen and share it.
Yeah, and we'll put in our podcast description, we'll put Peter's links and encourage you to go and support, especially knowing the backstory. That's really cool that the lyrics themselves coming from Ukrainians and those that were expressing their heart, you were capturing that. And you get that out of the song too. You know, there's an aggressive kind of defiance to the song, if I'm being honest, like that I think even more now is meaningful than the first few months. You know, that there was so much suffering and shock, and people are just, you know, not in a place to process. It was just response, you know, get out of harm's way. And it just was, a lot of the missionaries and folks that were working in charities were just overwhelmed. And now that there's been, you know, almost going on 6 months, to take a listen to this song and to realize even 6 months after, Ukraine didn't ask for this. Ukraine wasn't provoking this whole idea that NATO was encroaching or there's Nazis, you know, all infiltrated Ukraine. This is a real powerful confrontational song that's in solidarity with those that really are just wanting peace and wanting to live their lives the way God has intended us to, free from oppression and fear. And so I really appreciate you taking the time. I know right out of the gate, there was links and I saw the song. And for many of us, like I said, we were just running ragged and running in circles. And it really is a testimony to artists that do care, that they're not just about trying to make a name for themselves or make money, or that something touched your heart. And in that process, you were able to create something to share. And so on behalf of all of the Ukrainians that are listening, get the song, share it, and give Peter a shout on social media. Also let him know how much you're thankful as well, that he put his time and his money into something that he could do. When we all feel so powerless, there are creative ways to give our voice.
Well, thank you, Bruce. And you know, you failed to mention that your daughter is also a part of this song too.
I'm not sure what she's up to these days. Did she help you with the art?
She did help me. I conceived the artwork, but I had to communicate it and have someone actually, you know, she was translating to it with her talent. Unbelievably, you know, like what she did was, to me, because that's communicating a message too. And I wanted it, there has to be a correlation with that imagery in the song. I wanted it to connect. Like, so here we see this bright, bold Ukrainian flag flying to the backdrop of a plumes of smoke of an explosion. So that contrast is the bright yellow and blue just popping off that background of the plume of smoke from an explosion. The flag is flying strong and defiant, proud. There's a trident on the flagpole, just incorporating that national symbol. So, you know, even the font for "We Didn't Want Your War," it was a Ukrainian Slavic font, because I wanted to have the feel of like if someone was holding up a protest poster. That imagery to me was really important to connect with the song.
Oh, it's very cool. Well, thanks, Bronwyn. We'll give your link too.
Yeah, she did a great job, and you know,
artwork.
There's so much about this, Bruce. I mean, I have to mention this: the backing vocalist who did the harmony line, Dana, is from Belarus. So there's so much about this whole experience and song that's just incredible. You know, that's the thing with music. Sometimes it's the story behind the song that makes it so you know, special.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Super. Thank you, Peter, so much for connecting. I hope you have a great day, and we hope to hear more of your music in the coming days and months. With